All right, guys, we got a small little machining job I'm going to whip up this morning for my friend Joe down at the welding shop. He called me last night in a little bit of desperation because he's got a job that he really needs to finish and get out the door today. Today being Friday, you know, that's when all the haymans and the rush jobs come in. It was on Friday. But what he needs 3 half-inch pipe couplings made like this right here. All right, and he says that he's had some on order and they have not shown up. They're not in stock, and he's looked around several places. He says nobody has anything like this in stock right here because he has tried finding them off the shelf. I haven't looked myself to verify. All I did was say, yep, we can make you 3 up, no problem at all. We've got a piece of aluminum bar stock. We have a lathe, we have a tap, and we have a Flexarm. And there's numerous ways that you can obviously make this, but we can get it done pretty quick. So we're going to go ahead and run to the lathe and knock 3 of these guys out for Joe and get him down there this morning so that he can finish this up. I believe it's for a fuel tank is what he is making. He does a lot of custom application fuel tanks for cases like commercial boats, you know, things like that. He'll make up a fuel tank to go into boats. And you got to have these guys sometimes welded onto the side of the tanks for your fittings to screw into. So this is a 1/2-inch NPT, in case I failed to mention that, and an example of what we're going to be making right there. So he can take a 1/2-inch, whatever he's putting in there, some kind of fuel line, and screw it right into the bung, and this will get welded in to the tank there. So real simple thing. It's unfortunate that nobody had these commercially available right on the shelf, but we're going to go ahead and get them 3 made up right now. We'll just machine one at a time right here. What we'll do is face it, drill it, turn it, part it off. Just do that 3 times in a row. I'll just stick it out a couple inches right there. Get this faced off. Not exactly the correct insert to use, but it'll get the job done regardless. So that's a 1.5-inch OD aluminum bar stock. That's the closest thing I had to make these couplings here. So what we'll do is just turn it down to 1.25 inches. Let me go ahead and get it drilled first. Spot it in. We'll go ahead and put in our tap drill size and just drill it in one shot here. We're going to be using the 45/64 diameter drill bit. I'm going to go 1.25 inches deep. Just use a little cutting oil, help lubricate the chips to come out of there. I just went a little deeper than what I need to, because all we'll do is just pull this bar stock out and just continue to drill it and turning it there. So move the drill out of the way and we'll go ahead and turn it down some, chamfer the end. Just take this down 1/4 inch. Make the OD 1.25 inches. Put a chamfer both inside and outside. Inside's a little heavier, just breaking the edge on the OD there. Now we'll just go ahead and part it off. I'm gonna part these guys off. We're using a high-speed steel parting blade. I'm gonna part them off 1 1/8 long. And I'll use this little catcher rod right here just to catch it whenever it falls off there. All right. Just gonna part it in by hand, just feed it in by hand, I mean. Use some cutting oil. Easy as that. And then once we get them all machined, we'll set it back up and we'll just machine a chamfer on this back side there to break those sharp edges. All right, so 2 more to go. So all we have left to do is to tap them and then clean them off. So I wanted to point this out. This is a set of extra long or extra reach NPT taps that I had purchased from KBC Tools. I've got them from, so I've got 1/4, 3/8, half, 3/4, and 1 inch. What I had found out with whenever I'm using the Flexarm for a pipe is that a standard pipe tap is actually way too short to be able to fit into the coupling and then be able to do the tapping. It can be done, but your threads are all the way up against the adapter right here. Not really ideal. So I went ahead and invested in all of the long reach taps right here. These are all made by R&N. And we're going to be using the 1/2 inch, this guy right here. All right, and I've already used this guy, and you can see that I've got a red paint mark there on the flutes, and that is my stop point that I want to go up to and stop. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a go gauge for 1/2 inch NPT. I need to find one to complete my set because it seems like I have all these other sizes I have, and for some reason I cannot find my 1/2 inch NPT go gauge. But you can, if you don't have a gauge, you can just simply use some kind of good quality brass fitting or some kind of pipe fitting right there. And you want to try to have at least 3 or 4 threads engaged in that, by hand. Also, you can take a standard pipe tap right here and just count down to approximately 5 to 6 threads from the top, and that'll put you real close there too. And if you're worried about this, then you basically just get to the point where you're hand fitting. You tap it a little shallow, test your fitting. If you need to go a little deeper, then just run the tap in another rotation or 2 and check it, and that'll put you real close. All right, so we've got a 1/2 inch NPT tap adapter right here to go in our Flexarm. This will go down inside there, and then you engage the square just like that, and there we go. So this guy is ready to go to the Flexarm, and we will set up and start tapping. This is my little crude setup here for holding round parts. And it actually reminds me that I want to build a proper fixture to go into the mill vise for setup with the Flexarm here whenever you want to hold round pieces for tapping. So what I'd like to do, this is one I built to go in the lathe right there. I built this to use at Motion years ago, and it's handy for a lot of things, just like this. So we got a V-block behind it and just using the moving jaw to square it up, because this is machined nice and true with the chuck there, so we should be nice and perpendicular. I have no worries about that. But what I was getting at, I actually want to make a little fixturing project out of this, use the same concept, but I want to buy a dedicated 3-jaw chuck that I can use and make a fixture plate that it's mounted to that will fit in the vise. And that's all it's used for, is coming over here, setting in the vise. You can have it where we'll set it down maybe on some parallels and tighten it up, and then it's ready to go for round stuff. But for now, this is what we'll use. So just take one of our couplings, and this should provide, this is a good quality buck chuck. This was my dad's actually. And just tighten it up. That should be pretty good right there. And we'll go ahead and start our tapping. We're ready to tap our first coupling here. Just gonna dunk the tap in the cutting oil. I've also got another cutting oil can right there we can use. I'm just going to break the chips. All right, so I've gone down to my red mark there, so we're going to go ahead and back out. Hit the wrong button. That's one of the things you really got to be careful about when you're doing pipe threads, is hitting the wrong button. So I want about a half a rotation more than what I actually wanted right there, but it should be fine. There's our pipe coupling, and see, yeah, that looks pretty good right there. I've even got let's move that out of the way. Got a wrench here you can use. So that looks good right about there. And once this thing is welded in, all you have to do in the very end, once these are welded on, I'm sure Joe has a 1/2-inch pipe tap. You can just run a pipe tap in there to clean these threads up in case it draws close a little bit, or you know, you get a boogered up thread in there, just chase it. That looks pretty good. It's got a nice looking thread, and it's certainly a lot easier than pulling a tap wrench to tap it. The Flexarm does such a good job. All right, 2 more to do. Trying to spin on me. Get a little tighter. Make sure you go the right way out. All right, so our couplings are finished here. Just got them cleaned off, and these guys are ready to get welded on to the fuel tank. Actually, Joe just called me because I told him whenever I got these things finished, I'm going to run them down there. His shop is directly behind the new shop space that I'm leasing. I'm actually leasing it from him, so I'm just helping him out. But we had a quick little conversation about it because these are the things that he always keeps in stock. He said he stocked these from a 1/4 inch all the way up to 2 inch in aluminum. He's probably got some other ones too, but he always keeps them in his storage bin because he uses these all the time. He said he tries to keep 20, or he orders 20 at a time. And he ordered all these sizes back in November. And he got down to where he only had a couple of these 1/2 inch NPT couplings left. So they went to order it, and it was showed that they were actually on back order. And they went and tried to order again yesterday. McMaster Car did not have any in stock. Gulf Coast Marine Supply didn't have any in stock. K&J Supply, those are our local dealers. Nobody had them in stock, which he says that's the first time that this simple little part, which is a commercially available, standard part, is all on back order. Nobody has them. So that's where your buddy A-Bomb comes into play and can make these things pretty quick there. So this right here is a favor that I'm doing for Joe because he always helps me out. I've had a couple deliveries down there for the new shop, and he always unloads the truck for me with his forklift and puts the stuff in the shop. Never says anything about that. So I'm just helping him out because we always try to do that for each other anytime we can help each other out there. So we're going to go ahead and run down there. I'm going to drop these off. He says the fuel tank is sitting there. I can get a shot of it for you guys so you can see. He said one is the inlet, one is the outlet, and one is going to be a vent. And then he'll have just an extra one for his bin right there. So we'll head on down there and get a shot of the fuel tank that he's building. I had to jump in here and do some voiceover because they had a really loud radio playing the day that I dropped these off. So this is the fuel tank that Joe and the guys there were busy building and what they needed these fittings for. So that's probably going to be your fuel inlet and outlet holes. And then this third hole is probably for the vent. I'm not sure what the fourth hole there is for. But this is obviously an aluminum fuel tank that they're building for a boat. It's probably a commercial fishing boat, but I did not ask him what the application is for. But he does a lot of fuel tanks like this for the commercial fishing industry down here on the Gulf Coast. So he was not in the shop at the time, but you can tell that they're still in the process of fabricating. They got some lap joints there where it's going to get welded together. The end plates still need to be cut to shape and get those welded on. But this was on a Friday, and he wanted to get this job finished that day and get it delivered to the customer. So I jumped on this and got it done for him. I will say that we did find another local supplier after the job that does stock these aluminum fittings. This is my Easy Lift towing system. It is the R3 weight distribution towing system for our Kodiak travel trailer. It has been the subject of past videos. I believe I had it at least in one video. I was talking about how loose this thing is. And here we are back to work on this once again. And the reason why I'm going to be working on this is because of this right here. So that little bit of movement right there, first of all, I think it's a bad design. It was poorly designed. It works whenever it works well. So whenever everything is working the way that it was designed to, it's a great system. I love the way the bars hook in because they slide in from the top and then they easily connect to the trailer frame on the tongue there. The problem is this always loosens up while I'm in tow. And it doesn't matter how much I tighten this screw right here and the set screw on the bottom, which actually pushes it against the drilled holes there. No matter how much I tighten that, as soon as I start going down the highway, when I get to my next stop, this is always loosened up. So anytime you're pulling a trailer and you're making turns, in parking lots or transitions to pull out on the road and you hear any kind of popping noises, it's because of this. This guy is what's making all that noise right there. Whenever you stop and you accelerate and you hear and you feel the little, it's because of this right here. I'm going to attempt to do a repair on this and actually make it work better than the factory did. And I think the main problem is that when they drill these holes, they drill them oversized for a standard bolt. So then it has slack in these two holes right there for it to wiggle. And then they implemented the 2 set screws for you to be able to tighten this thing up. Problem is the set screws just won't stay tight. I don't care how much you bang on this with a chisel and a hammer, because that's the only way you can get in there and tighten that up. I just have an old cheap screwdriver that I keep on my box, and that's all I use it for, is to tighten that up. So I don't know if I'm gonna do a full fix today because we're getting ready to use it, but I am gonna replace the sleeve on the bottom that I already made before that I lost in transit. But I got an idea on what we can do to maybe improve this design. I've got you flipped up here on this side so you can see what it is I'm talking about. And by the way, I'm not looking to replace this system with a new unit, a different brand, a different manufacturer. I know folks are going to suggest it. The Reese has a bunch of systems. I've already got our money invested in this right here. It gets the job done. I've got a machine shop that I can use to kind of help fix this right here. And so that's what my plan is to make this better than the factory makes it. So you can see the bottom set screw, this guy right here, and you can see how this piece, the insert, wiggles around, and that's why they've got the set screw on the top there, down inside there with the grooves that you got to catch with a chisel or a screwdriver to tighten it up. But what you're supposed to be able to do is, once this guy's adjusted tight, finger tight, then you reach down here and you tighten this up with a wrench, this square-headed set screw. The problem is that they didn't put quite a long enough set screw in this right here. So just as you get this tight, just as you get it tight to where it doesn't move, you already bottomed out on the square head right there. So that's one fail right there from the factory. They should have had a little bit longer set screw in there. Now what I had done earlier in the year, once I realized what was going on here, I machined a spacer that went in here that took up that slack, and I was able to keep this tight. It worked for a while and eventually got loose, didn't realize it, lost it during our travels through South Dakota is when it fell out of there. And whenever I stopped to visit Will up in Montana, he helped make me a little spacer. We put it in there. By the time I got to the next campground, it was gone. It was loosened up and fell out of there. So I'm going to make another spacer that'll go in there, but this time I'm actually going to counterbore it so that it can slip up over these threads here and not fall out of there like it did last time. Even if it loosens up, it'll still be captured in there by the thread, because this isn't going to back out far enough for it to completely fall out of there. And the other idea that I have to fix this to where it eliminates all the slop together is take these bolts out, remove this whole piece, and the holes that the bolts are going through, we're going to use those 2 holes there, bore and bush those 2 holes and make it a close fit on these bolts so that you have very little slack and movement in there. So that's the set screw we're going to make a spacer for again right there. I've got everything loose. That's the maximum movement that it'll do right there. So it is a 5/8 diameter set screw. I'm going to take a piece of stainless and we're going to drill it and counterbore it so that what I can do is go ahead and just back this out to where the threads clear. So we'll make it, let's say 5/8 long. It'll be a total of 5/8. There you go. It'll be 5/8, and we'll counterbore it so that we'll back this out all the way, and I'll be able to stick it in there and then tighten this back up, and then the threads will actually keep it captured in there. So that'll be our first fix for this right there. And I definitely want to drill and bush those holes right there with a piece of steel or some tubing or something to take up that slack right there. So there's our stainless steel spacer. It should work pretty good. The last one that I made, I didn't do a counterbore like that. I just drilled a divot in it, and obviously that didn't work because the set screw backs out. So with the event of the set screw continuing to back out while you're traveling down the highway, hopefully the counterbore will capture it and keep it in there so that when I get to the next place, I can snug it back up and I haven't lost it. It looks like I'm gonna have to, I got some burrs in there. Oh, there we go. I think I got it that time. Let's see. Okay, we got it now. There we go. Now, you see, even with that spacer in there, you know, we don't even have a 1/4 inch there of thread left. We got about a 1/4 inch left. And sure, you could have installed a longer set screw, but when you're on the road and you're not near, you know, any kind of significant hardware store, it's going to have set screws like this. You know, you just roll with what you can. So the way to actually tighten this, we'll go ahead and loosen the set screw back off a little bit, get it loose. So, and remember, this is upside down. So this guy here will go in there, and I'm going to snug it up finger tight. There's no point in trying to tighten it up with a chisel right now, but okay, so that's finger tight. Now you come back in here with this, with a wrench. You see, the way they got this position is that it's hard to even get a wrench in there to properly tighten this because the wrench starts hitting this area here. So then you do this right there. This set screw should tighten the whole thing up. You shouldn't be having to come in here with chisels and punches and screwdrivers to try to tighten that up. So that should be how it works right there. So that's going to get me back on the road anyway and keep this thing tight. See, once those are tight, this thing is locked. It's in there. But the movement on the road and the weight of the tongue down on this thing causes this to loosen up every time. So next phase is to bore and bush these holes right here where these bolts go and tighten up the slack that was built into this from the factory. So these are 3/4 inch diameter bolts that go through there and hold that. You can see it's got a little bit of wear there. We've been running this for over 2.5 years now. Put quite a few miles on it. So that's measuring about 742 right there. 738 down there. Let's just call it 740. And then the hole is going to be, look at that, 790. 790. So 50 thousandths clearance in these holes right there. Definitely not a precision fit. So I know that this kind of stuff, this is a forged steel piece and then they just drill a hole through there. The factory makes this stuff to loose standards, but we've got a machine shop, so we can do better. We can improve it. The way the factory has this thing designed is that, see, you can loosen these bolts up and adjust this guy right here. This one is slotted. But for my setup on my truck and the way that where this is sitting at is if this ball is kicked down any further than what it's at, it makes hooking up the torsion bars here, the weight distribution bars, it makes it a lot harder to connect to the brackets on the trailer itself, because then if it's down here this way, it kicks it down on an angle. And that was one of the problems with this lower set screw loosening up, it was making it twist down a little bit further, making it harder for me to get the weight distribution bars pried up onto the bracket. So for our setup, it works better with this adjusted all the way back, and then that's where this is tightened up at. It makes hooking these bars up a breeze, and it works perfectly right there. So we can see, you know, what's going on now with this looseness of the hole right there over the bolt. So this is what I plan on fixing, boring and sleeving those holes right there. Unfortunately, I've got some other things that I need to do over the next couple of days before we head out on our trip. So I'm going to put this back together. We're going to make sure that we utilize our new washer there on the bottom side where we tighten this thing up. And that will correct it for now, but I definitely want to come back and tighten this up. We'll set up in the mill, use a boring head, bore these holes out probably to, I don't know, 7/8, somewhere around that range, maybe 1 inch. And then just take an old piece of stock like this, an old hydraulic rod, and machine a couple sleeves to press in there and tighten it up enough to where my goal is to have the hole like right on the 3/4 size, because at that point we'll have a bolt that we can stick down in there. I went and looked in my rotary bin, and I don't have these. These are 3/4 by 4 inch bolts, so I'd like to get a couple of new bolts because these have some wear on them right there, and replace them whenever we do that. So I'll come back and do a final fix on this once we get back from our trip. I want to show you this. I went ahead and got this clamped back on there, and I put more torque on the 2 3/4 inch bolts there to a little bit of slack that the bracket, this foreign bracket had. I was actually able to squeeze it to it just touched the forged insert piece right there. So that's going to help tighten that up as well. But I wanted to show this. This is the anti-sway feature built into this particular hitch. So there's a band that goes around the center of this bracket right here, and you just simply tighten that up to provide tightening tension on this piece here. That's actually loose to where you can actually center it up, install your weight distribution bars, get them hooked up, and then once they are, then you go ahead and you finish, you tighten this bolt down right here. This is a modification I made too, because the original bolt and nut on the back side was stripped out. So I took a heavy hex bolt, lined it up with the bolt there, welded it to the bottom side, and just used an Allen bolt. But that tightens that up right there, and then so this will be your anti-sway control built into the hitch. All right, I just wanted to give you an update on the hitch. Last time you saw it, we were in the shop in the vise putting us all back together, and everything worked out. We just took a trip up to Chattanooga in North Alabama camping for Thanksgiving, and so it's still mounted to the truck right here, still nice and rigid. Oh, and then also my anti-rattle clamp that I made myself right there that holds the 2-inch insert into the actual receiver right there and keeps it from moving around, that little bit of slack in there. Whenever I showed making that, man, I had a lot of people telling me that that would not work. But I'm here to tell you, it worked great. We used this on the big haul, 8,000 miles, and it worked perfectly fine. It didn't bend, break the threads, it didn't do anything wrong. It did exactly what I designed it to do. Look at this. Shaking the whole truck right there. So this worked good. Our improvements here, tightening this up right here with the 2 3/4 bolts tight against the receiver here, or the insert I mean, that helped take up any slack that was in there, and it's working good. I will say that this top screw here is loose. See that? It's loose. So I'm still getting a little bit of movement in this somewhere that's causing that to loosen up. You got a lot of weight bearing down on this piece once you hook the trailer up to it, so I think that's going to create less tension on this joint right here, and that's going to allow that to loosen up some. But we still made improvements on there. Tightening up really helped there. This helps a lot, and then the stainless sleeve on the bottom, that worked out really good there too. So still a whole lot better than what we were before, and it's working out much better now. got some 304 stainless we're going to tap. We're using a 1/4 20 spiral fluted tap, and I am going to be using my old school Molly D. This is some stuff that my dad bought years ago. I've had this for probably well over 20 years. Really good stuff for stainless steel. So I've got it in one of my oil cans actually, and I'm just going to fill this hole up. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit on the tap as well. And we are going to go to town right here. There we go. It just clutched out. Nice. We'll get the oil cleaned off and see what it looks like. Looks good. I looking?
You're looking good.
Looking good?
Yep. Yikes. You're looking good.
Looking good, huh?
You're fine. That one's a little off. That's my bad, but you're fine. Let me check the front. Wait. You're good.
You got those things perfect.
You're good.
Oh, bring that bucket up a little. We got it.
You look good in it. Yes.
Bam. There we go.
It's like you know what you're doing.
I'm trying to act like I am. This the reflector, just they got a quick release bracket here, and it was blocking my view, so I just took that off there. Exciting.
It's very
times.
exciting.
Yep. I've actually got to, I'm gonna get out here tomorrow and just kind of start getting familiar with everything. I'm gonna take the bucket off tomorrow and practice getting it attached. That way I can take that off and hook the fork attachment up to it and use that as well.
You're going to read the entire owner's manual, aren't you?
Yep, I'm going to go through it and try to get familiar with everything. But he just said, you know, 2 or 3 times of taking that off and on, you should have it figured out. But it's a pretty simple system of just releasing the pins and then picking up on it and coming out of there. So,
well, it's a pretty thing, isn't it?
It's beautiful. I love the Kubota orange.
Me too.